So my name is Trudy Bauchery. I am a burlesque performer and producer hailing from Eugene, sometimes gallivanting in Portland, and expanding up and down the West Coast a little bit here and there. I would classify myself as a comedic burlesque performer. Certainly not classic, certainly not a trained dancer. My style is more sketch comedy. I think my skill set is telling an intriguing, surprising, witty, comical story in 6 minutes or less with no words. That's my bag. So the producing thing is all about, as a performer, wanting to have an avenue that's just right for your performance, and sometimes you have to make that show. If you want to be in a specific type of show, sometimes you're the one who's got to make it. So in Eugene, there's not a whole lot going on. There's a few groups of us producing shows in Eugene. I am not alone. But I started producing because I wanted a comedic vaudeville type show, and I wanted to perform in it, so I started producing it. I did really good. Still am. One of my goals was to get people from out of town to come and perform and to start to get a good reputation so that I could get some really fantastic performers from all over the Pacific Northwest and now all over the country to come and want to perform for us and for Eugene, and to expose my community to really high quality burlesque. And it's been a really great relationship. We've kind of grown together as I've learned how to produce better and get bigger and better acts in. And the crowd has come to expect more and more from my shows. And more people have been inspired to investigate burlesque and possibly get involved as well. First, I said one of my goals with producing was creating a show that I want to be in, but also exposing the community and making burlesque more of a presence in my community. And I think I've succeeded in both of those. It's a lot of work. Producing takes a whole lot of energy. If you do the job right, nobody's going to notice what you've done. Hopefully, they won't even think about the job as a producer. It's not until there's lags, flaws, technical difficulties, people are like, oh, producer didn't do so well. And so if at the end of the show they don't even think about your production, they just think about the experience and how great it was, then you've done a good job. But it's kind of, you're a bit of an unsung hero in that everybody who is on stage and everybody who played a more visible role is going to be able to shine. At the same time, I'm also performing, so I get to still have some glory with that. And then performers are always really grateful for a good production, and they'll come back again and again. My biggest influences when it comes to performing is Carol Burnett and Jim Henson and The Muppet Show. I would say my biggest influences as far as performers go, Minnie Tonka and Darlinda, just Darlinda. All of these things have comedy and storytelling at the core, and a lot of times crazy characters and costumes and just over the top and witty, but also with some sort of social commentary and something important to say. And so for me, that's what burlesque is about. That's what I am trying to express, what I'm exploring. And I do often play characters, crazy costumes, and I enjoy the storytelling. Usually if I have a skit idea, it'll be something really simple, like, wouldn't it be funny if a door-to-door vacuum cleaner salesman accidentally sucks off the housewife's clothes, and that's the strip. Okay, that's funny, but that's predictable. It's probably already been done. how. So for me, that's the beginning of it. And then from there, it might become more complex with that storyline. It turned into a spoof on 70s porn. And the horny housewife ends up, let's just say there's babies and cocaine and surprise endings, and it's so much more than just a cliche. And there's also this underlying statement about gender roles and the household. And so it becomes this big, long social commentary, but it's done in 6 minutes or less, and it's always entertaining. And I always have several skit ideas in the back of my brain, sitting on the back burner, bubbling. Usually they slowly grow, and it isn't until one really lights on fire that I know I'm going to do it. And more often than not, it's really over the top and probably impossible. And as I strive to make it actually happen, it sort of whittles and transforms into something that's more realistic. I had a skit where I basically wanted to be wearing a giant Rubik's Cube that I could switch all these different directions and get my body parts all jumbled up, but I'm not an architect. I don't even sew. So I actually started to build this thing, and eventually what it ended up being was a giant cabinet that I can wear and twist and turn with different doors that I open. Essentially, the story still is the same, but they start out really grand ideas, and the message stays the same, but I have to sort of bring them down to reality. One that I'm going to do soon, I'm actually 3 different characters. It's sort of film noir, mystery, detective, and I'm going to play the detective, the femme fatale victim, and the suspected murderer. And it sounds impossible, and it might be, but I'm going to make it happen somehow, hopefully in the next couple of months. Usually I spend a lot of time with an idea, spend most of the time with the idea. I think a lot of burlesque performers spend a lot of time practicing and choreographing. And for me, I spend most of my time concentrating on a story, just thinking about it over and over again, finding different ways to approach it, figuring out how, without words, to represent some big idea with just a glance or just a gesture or just a costume or the placement of a table and a lamp. You call it the way something reads, the way the audience reads something is really important. So it's all just visual, and it's all in this tiny little context of a stage. So you're trying to represent a big, wide world without saying anything, without being able to leave the confines of a stage, and usually with really simple props, something that you can set up and take down and shove in your car and drive across the country. And it needs to be able to set up and get taken down in 2 minutes or less. So there's a lot of these really fun limitations that for me is really enjoyable. I think the most annoying limitation for me in burlesque is that usually it has to involve some sort of sex appeal. And sometimes I'll forget that and have to be like, oh yeah, they're expecting some sort of ta-da. Okay, well, scale down the outfit or something. And so sometimes for me it's an afterthought. Usually I spend most of my time thinking about the idea and the skit and the storyline, and then I work on the costumes and the characters. And then I perform the skit about 3 times, and then I'm over it and I want to move on. So I have a lot of crazy costumes and props that have only been used a handful of times, and I'm just over it. And that's most burlesque performers keep working on something and they polish it and it evolves. Some of my pieces evolve and I'm growing with them, but most of them I had fun, I explored the idea, we had a great time together, and then c'est la vie. And in that way, I think it emulates sketch comedy and something like Carol Burnett or Saturday Night Live, where you're just always coming up with new things. And for me, the fun is coming up with the stories and following through with them, and then the thrill of the crowd, like getting it, like they're laughing at the right points, and they're surprised when they're supposed to be surprised, and it's like, yes, I nailed it. And after I've played people about 3 different times with the same idea, it's just not thrilling for me anymore. It's like, now I wanna try something else. Okay, I could do that. You fell for that. Now what can I come up with? How can I push my ideas and push their expectations? And that's burlesque for me. That's the thrill. I think when I first started, the first troupe that I was with, I wasn't very confident, but I had some ideas, and my troupe mates were willing to give it a go and try my ideas, even though they sounded really strange. Usually your ideas look great in your head, but then when you tell somebody about them, they just sound silly, or they just don't sound entertaining at all. But once they're actually put into play, they can be amazing. And so that's something that I've learned over the years, is like, you can be like, I got this great idea for a skit. I put on a jumpsuit and I pretend I'm so-and-so and I jump around and then I flop in a box and then I crawl out and blah, blah, blah. It's not a skit that I have, but... And it could sound really boring and mundane, but if you actually put it on stage and you tell your story, there's all these things you can't just tell somebody, but once you're actually doing it and you tell the whole story is there with your face and your body and your costumes, and then it comes together. So when I was first telling my troupe mates about these skit ideas that I had, they were a little reluctant, but they jumped on board with me, and we did them. And we played in a backyard, and we played in a warehouse, and people loved them. And that's when I was like, oh, I'm good at this. I want to do this some more. And so it was the audience that confirmed for me that my storytelling was good and that I was successful in the storytelling. My limitations are it has to be 6 minutes or less. I could never write a novel. I could never write a short story. I could never write a romantic 3-page letter. I have to have this really short boom, boom, boom. And it's perfect for burlesque. 6 minutes or less, and then you're out of there. Just leave them wanting more. I think it's important for the community to understand that burlesque is not just about entertainment and striptease, and it goes well beyond male gaze and entertainment. That there is a big social message that a lot of performers have to share. Anything from gender identity, gender bending, sexuality, taking the male gaze and turning it on its head, taking power back over our own bodies and our own sexuality. You can be a strong woman or strong individual of any gender and still be a sexual being, still be confident, and still be respectable. And you can still be funny and smart and have a family and a job, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. And I think people who've never been to a burlesque show in the Pacific Northwest or anywhere in the country might not realize the amount of inspiration that performers give to an audience, and how within the burlesque community we continue to inspire each other. A lot of performers come in with body issues or relationship issues, all kinds of stuff that they're dealing with, and they work it out on stage, and they share it with the world, and the world accepts them. It's huge, and it's healing, and it's inspiring, and expanding, and it's a community service. I think it's a huge part of my life, and it's going to continue to expand throughout the community. Anywhere it starts to get its little hooks in, a lot of people have the wrong idea about it, and that's slowly changing. And the more burlesque performers are proud about what they do and educate people about what they do, the more the stigma will fade and burlesque will save the world.
Cutting loose.